So much, Mr. Vice President, and coming to UGA and allowing us to express our freedom of speech. So thank you so much. The First Lady said Epstein was not acting alone and had to be held accountable. She said and called for a congressional hearing, but President Trump multiple times called the files a hoax. The acting attorney general said Epstein shouldn't be a part of anything at the DOJ. If there are compromised government officials in those files, how can the public trust that this administration will hold anyone accountable when its own Justice Department is actively blocking the investigation? Given that, can you clearly articulate your stance on whether federal entities should have a formal investigation?
One moment, one question, and an answer so layered, so carefully constructed, that it told us more about what's being hidden than what's being revealed. The Epstein files, 6 million documents, decades of secrets, and a Justice Department that, according to some, is actively working to make sure you never find out what's inside them. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is happening right now. Here's what you need to understand first. Jeffrey Epstein was not just a wealthy financier with bad habits. He was a man with connections so deep, inside intelligence agencies, inside foreign governments, inside the most exclusive social circles on the planet, that his death inside a maximum security federal prison still raises questions no official has been able to satisfactorily answer. His network didn't disappear when he died. It went quiet, and quiet in this world is the most dangerous sound there is. Now fast forward to a university campus. JD Vance, the Vice President of the United States, is taking questions from students. A young man steps up, composed, precise, and he asks the question that almost no journalist in a formal press setting has had the nerve to ask directly. He lays it out clean. Melania Trump publicly stated that Epstein did not act alone and called for a congressional hearing. President Trump called the files a hoax multiple times. And the acting attorney general reportedly stated that Epstein should not be part of anything at the DOJ. 3 positions, from 3 people inside the same administration, pointing in 3 completely different directions. The student's question was sharp. If compromised government officials are named in those files, how can the public trust that the very institution responsible for accountability, the Department of Justice, will actually pursue it when that same department appears to be blocking the investigation? That question deserved a straight answer. What it got was something far more interesting.
Here's my view on the Epstein matter. Number one, the guy was clearly a scumbag, okay? Number two, he clearly had extraordinary connections both with intelligence services, both inside the United States and outside the United States, and also with a lot of very wealthy and powerful people.
Vance started well. He called Epstein a scumbag. He acknowledged the extraordinary connections to intelligence services, both domestic and foreign. He even admitted on a public stage that he is, in his own words, probably more obsessed with this than most officials. Think about that. The Vice President of the United States voluntarily told a room full of students that he is personally consumed by the Epstein case.
I have been a firm advocate and will continue to be a firm advocate of where we have something and you know, like, I'm probably more obsessed with this than most officials, okay? Probably more obsessed with this than most people even in this room, is when you see somebody who says something in an email that suggests, you know, there's one email I read, and it's been a little while ago, but it was talking about, you know, one person sent an email to Jeffrey Epstein saying, oh, there were some really nice, like, pizzas and grape sodas or something like that. And I remember it sounded like the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, but here it was in like an email from a guy. And my reaction to that was, we should absolutely investigate that person, okay? And, you know, you remind me, I'm going to follow up on that to see whether we've investigated that person, because we should. We absolutely should.
So why isn't that obsession translating into action? Because here is where it gets complicated. Vance pivoted, and he pivoted hard. He referenced a specific email in the Epstein files, an email involving coded language. Language that, he said, sounded like the Pizzagate conspiracy theory. His reaction? He said that person should be investigated. He even said, live on stage, that the encounter reminded him to follow up, to check whether that investigation had actually happened. The Vice President of the United States, live, admitting he doesn't know if a suspected email from the Epstein files has ever been properly followed up on.
When you see evidence of sexual assault, sexual misconduct, regardless of whether you're powerful or not, in fact, you should probably investigate it more if you're a powerful person, right? I don't want powerful people, being involved in this disgusting behavior. But I have to defend the president on this because when he said that it was a hoax, what he was talking about was this democratic idea that he's connected to Epstein. If you look at those emails, it's like, they were in the same, everybody in Palm Beach knew everybody.
Let that sink in for just a moment. Then came the defense of Trump, and this is where the narrative shifted entirely. Vance's argument was that when Trump called the files a hoax, he wasn't denying Epstein's crimes or his connections. He was specifically denying the claim that he and Epstein were close associates. Vance pointed to emails allegedly showing that Epstein despised Trump, and that Trump had reportedly contacted local law enforcement to flag Epstein as someone worth looking at. That's a very specific, very convenient framing. And it raises an obvious question. If those emails exist and they're that exonerating, why haven't they been released publicly? Why are we hearing about their contents through a verbal summary on a college stage rather than in a formal document drop that the entire world can read?
Like the president has said, he knew Jeffrey Epstein and he was a scumbag. But what you see in those emails is that Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump. And Donald Trump hated Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, one of the emails is about Donald Trump narking on Jeffrey Epstein to the local sheriff saying, this guy's a scumbag. You should go and pick him up. So when the president says this is a hoax, he's not saying it's a hoax that Epstein was the scumbag. He's not saying that it's a hoax that Epstein was connected to powerful people. He's saying this democratic idea that somehow he was Epstein's best friend, that is a hoax. And if you look at the emails, it's obvious that Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald J. Trump. And by the way, one of the best signs for whether you're a good person or not, for whether you're a decent human being, is if the worst people in the world hate your guts. The fact that Jeffrey Epstein hates Donald J. Trump is a pretty good thing for Donald J. Trump.
And then, almost as an afterthought, Vance dropped the biggest news of the entire exchange. Right before walking off stage, he mentioned that the DOJ had just, that very moment, fully unredacted 6 million Epstein documents and made them available to members of Congress, not to the public, to Congress. And his advice to the students? Put pressure on your representatives to report back on what they find. 6 million documents handed to politicians. And we're being told to ask those same politicians what's inside.
The DOJ, just before we got on stage, I guess I saw the news, has unredacted fully the 6 million documents, made it available to your congressmen and women. So put pressure on them to go give you a report of what they find.
The student asked how the public can trust this process. That question has not been answered. The documents exist, the names are in there, the connections are real. Vance himself confirmed that. But the mechanism for accountability runs directly through the institutions that may have the most to lose if those names go public. Investigations are ongoing, or at least that's what we're told. Congress now has access, or at least that's what we're told. And somewhere inside 6 million pages, there are answers that powerful people have spent years and fortunes making sure you would never see. The student walked away without a clean answer. So did everyone watching. Here's the question nobody in power wants you to sit with. If the worst people in the world hating you is proof you're a good person, then what does it mean when the system designed to expose those worst people keeps finding reasons to slow down, look away, and redirect? Who is actually being protected here? And how long before the public stops asking politely? If you want the truth, they don't want trending, subscribe to Viral Spills. New exposés dropping every week.